This feast day of the Holy Cross that appears in September, it seems far removed from Good Friday, is here because of events in the 4th century when Saint Helena, the mother of Constantine, was to have discovered the Holy Cross in Jerusalem. And as was her wont, she dedicated and built a church in Jerusalem, and the successive churches have become known as the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the crucifixion and the resurrection are brought together in a place of worship. It's one of those places I haven't been yet but want to see, and it does have, of course, a very profound effect on people. I remember Father Connor talking about it, and also you might read the 14th century Marjorie Kemp, whose really intense wailings began at that site because she had an imagination that was beyond imagination. And every time after that, for many years, when confronted with the Passion of the Cross, she would throw herself down and weep and wail at the cross. Now we have Mother Scott back here in the corner, who was a legend from St. Stephen's. And I heard about Mother Scott decades before I ever set foot in this place from Horace Allen, who used to teach liturgy at the Boston University School of Theology, and a high church Presbyterian who used to worship here in the days of Father Went. And one Good Friday, when Father Went was off demonstrating at the Pentagon or somewhere else, he left Horace in charge of the Adoration of the Cross service. Now, leaving the Presbyterian in charge of such a service might have some peril. And indeed, he was unprepared when Mother Scott came for the Adoration of the Cross and threw herself into complete and total ecstasy at the whole idea of the cross and its adoration. I don't know how many times I heard that story, but it was obviously something that had deeply imprinted itself in his memory. This month is also when the Orthodox calendar begins for the Chalcedonians on September 1st, and at least for the Coptic and Ethiopian churches on September 11th. So we have and this year we've had Rosh Hashanah and today's Yom Kippur, so we've got this holy nexus going on in addition to this. And today I want to briefly move from the cross as relic to the cross as icon, two not quite separate but certainly related meanings. We have a problem with relics. It is said by some that there are enough true pieces of the cross to build an ark, and other such Protestant interpretations. Luther really despised them. The Episcopal Church, as always, is somewhere in the middle. Often an altar in an Episcopal Church will have, if not a relic of the true cross, which you can find at All Saints Ashmont in Boston with its certificate of authenticity, the bones or some remains of a saint. But there was a lot of buying and selling, and you'd end up with too many heads of John the Baptist, and the Bishop of Lincoln would bite off a finger of Mary Magdalene to take it home with him, and other such abuses. So relic by itself, even the cross as relic, is problematic. And then you get into the question, well, what does that relic mean? Is it magic? Is it a magic protection? Is it a talisman? Do you just have to carry? it around us. It has to be really real in order to have that magic. And so then you get into the problem of having your certificate of proving its provenance as a true relic. Does it get too nostalgic? Does it get too sentimental? And I think, again, the cross can become sentimental, even nostalgic, and people can rest on Good Friday and never make it through the weekend in terms of their salvation history. And it has to be all of a piece, I think. So we move from relic to icon. And I have actually brought along an image with me that I think straddles relic and icon. It's from my own family. And it's a picture of William S. Morey. Who, you ask, is William S. Morey? Well, on Tuesday, it was the 150th anniversary of his death in the Civil War. His body was never returned home. He's buried in Baton Rouge, which is quite ironic for someone who came from the shores of Lake Ontario, Sandy Creek, New York, where it snows 200 inches a year. And now he lays at rest in swampy and tropical and humid Baton Rouge. This picture was one of those pictures that was taken of Civil War soldiers who were about to go off to war, fearing that they might not return. And so the photographers did a very big business with this newfangled technology, just in case the loved one wouldn't return. And that's about all that was left of Uncle Willie. But the fact that this is still in the family 150 years later said something about how this image had become iconic in terms of standing in for the reality that was William S. Morey. And I can't even be sure that they knew where exactly he was buried at first, because a lot of these people who died were buried right where they died in the battlefield, and only later were remains transferred to a national cemetery. If you want reading on that, read The Republic of Death by Drew Gilpin Faust, who's now the president of Harvard. It's one of the absolute best history books I've ever read, and I've read a lot of history books. She's good stuff, good reading. So we move from image and relic to icon, and we mean icon in the sense not as paradigm, but as that which is transparent, through which we access another reality, and that through which that reality is offered to us. It's a two-way sort of thing, so that the cross itself then does not remain its own magic talisman, but it's that through which the grace of God is offered to us.